Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are staying safe. Guys, a new day. Um, Same stuff. Just a new day. Boxing talk as always, guys. And the same, my subscribers smashing that like button as always and sharing the video and subscribing to the channel. Showing the channel love and support. I want to thank you over the last couple of days. You know, you guys have really been pressing that like button. So yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It means a lot. And it's given me that sense of motivation, that sense of jump and drive again. Sometimes you need it. Sometimes you get down, you get depressed, but you know, it's given me that sense of drive and motivation that I needed. So yeah, thank you guys for that. But yeah, I wanted to get into it. Jermall Charlo has clapped back at Oscar De La Hoya saying he can kiss my behind. So obviously, you know, Jermall Charlo hasn't taken kindly. I didn't think he would. You know, basically saying that Charlo needs to grow some balls to fight Munguia. Yeah, look, I don't think Oscar saying the things that he's saying is going to make these things easier to make. To be honest, Charlo is a very, very prized asset for PBC. They're not just going to let him go onto any other platform and just fight. It doesn't matter what money is offered. Now, I'm pretty sure DAZN would be willing to pay Charlo a lot of money for a fight with Jaime Manguia. And likewise, I think PBC would be willing to pay a lot of money to allow, to offer Manguia to come and fight on Fox and PBC. I just don't think either guy. I do think De La Hoya. I wouldn't say some of you said that De La Hoya is protecting Manguia. I don't think so. I think they're looking for a big fight now for Manguia. But I just think it's a case where De La Hoya wants to have the fight on his terms. I explained yesterday in the video that De La Hoya is not going to allow Manguia to go and fight on PBC because it's quite clear why, right? It's quite clear why that Oscar wouldn't allow, you know, Munguia to go and fight on PBC. Look, Oscar De La Hoya has a deal with DAZN. Oscar De La Hoya has limited amount of fighters. You have to say that the dominant promoter that DAZN have is Eddie Hearn. He's got virtually all of the fighters and all of the majority. He's even got Canelo now, you know, which definitely tips the favor. Now, Oscar De La Hoya have got a few fighters that DAZN are interested in. Munguia, Ortiz, Ryan Garcia. These are fighters that DAZN would be interested in. So really, if you look at it, these are the fighters. And by the way, none of these are champs, by the way. These are all guys that they think have potential. So they're promoting them and they feel that they can be future stars. Now, if Oscar De La Hoya starts allowing these type of guys to go and fight on other platforms, then him being a promoter that's linked or that's got a deal with DAZN becomes redundant, really, because he's not really providing the service that DAZN want. You know, he's not getting his top fighters to fight in big fights. And that's another key point, in big fights on DAZN. Another thing is Jaime Munguia is fighting Jimmy Kelly this weekend. Let's be brutally honest. DAZN aren't really interested in him fighting Jimmy Kelly. You know, their goal is to get Munguia in big fights, not fights with Jimmy Kelly. And that's Oscar De La Hoya's responsibility. So this is what I mean when I say Oscar De La Hoya is under a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure to make these big fights. And hence why you get these kind of statements. Oh, I hope Charlo grows some balls, is because I think he's trying to goad Charlo. Or let's make that fight. Let's just fight him on DAZN. But PBC, again, look at Charlo as a prize asset. They're not going to let him go. But the problem is, as us fans, we're the ones that lose out because these guys are going back and forth and, you know, this, that, and the other. And Charlo's very stubborn. Charlo's not going to go and fight on DAZN now because De La Hoya's probably peed him off. And he's just all come out and said he can kiss my behind. So, yeah, Charlo ain't having none of it. And, you know, and I don't know what the relationship is with De La Hoya and the Charlos and stuff. But regardless of that, us fans lose out because us fans want to see these big fights. Us fans want to see Charlo v Munguia. I don't think we're going to get the fight. I don't think we're going to get the fight because I think there's too much politics involved. PBC look at Charlo as a prize asset. Got a Golden Boy and DAZN look at Munguia as a prize asset. They're just not going to allow each other to go and fight on separate platforms. It's just not going to happen. Like I said, why would De La Hoya do it? De La Hoya would never do that. Firstly, you're sending your prize asset over to PBC where he could potentially get robbed. He could potentially, anything can happen. Because Charlo and a Munguia fight is going to be a tough fight for Munguia. You know, you're not going to allow one of your prize assets to just go and potentially get beat or robbed in a close decision. Or if you can't get robbed in a close decision, but potentially get, robbed. These things happen in boxing. It's not like Manguia is like a Canelo where they're going to give him first-class treatment. That's not it. Manguia's not that guy. So the point I'm trying to make is that it doesn't make sense for Oscar to allow one of his future cash cows to go and fight on a PBC Fox show. And it doesn't make any sense for PBC to allow Jermall Charlo, who they view as a potential future cash cow. And even me saying that, how old is Charlo? Charlo's been around for a very long time, but Charlo potentially could be involved in a lot of big fights and a lot of pay-per-view fights. The only problem is that Charlo's not really fighting any big names. Same with Munguia. Munguia might be a huge star in the future, but Munguia's fighting nobody as well. All these guys are fighting nobodies, really. When you think about it, they're fighting fights which no one's really interested in. Charlo was fighting Selecki, he's fighting Jimmy Kelly. Munguia, no one's interested in those fights. No one's interested in those fights. I don't think either Charlo or Munguia are ducking each other. I think it's just it just comes down to politics. Munguia and Charlo, Munguia wanted the fight. Munguia's openly said that I wanted to fight Charlo. I wanted the big fight, but it didn't work out, which is very sad. Charlo also wanted to fight Munguia. Because the reason why Charlo wanted to fight Munguia is because stylistically the fight's a beautiful fight for him. Stylistically the fight's a beautiful fight for Jaime Munguia as well. It's a good fight. It's a good scrap. And I don't think Charlo looks at Munguia like he looks at Andrade, like he's a horrible fighter. He's difficult. He's going to make it tough. I think Charlo looks at Munguia, and I think Charlo would welcome fights like that where he thinks, yeah, this is a war. This is a war between me and him, and I feel like I can beat him. And same with Munguia. Whereas I do think Munguia and Golden Boy are probably reluctant to fight Andrade. Look, Andrade and Munguia have been on the same platform. Why don't that fight be made? Wasn't Munguia mandatory to Andrade's world title as well? So why are they looking for a Charlo fight? Yeah, Charlo's a world champion, but why don't they just make an Andrade fight who's a world champion at 160, which makes a lot of sense. And it's easy to make. Because Hearn wouldn't have had a difficulty now. I believe that Andrade is no longer with Hearn. But let's be brutally honest. DAZN, Hearn wouldn't have had a problem making the Munguia fight. Hearn was calling out Munguia. Why doesn't Munguia want to fight Andrade? Andrade was calling out Munguia because of the fact stylistically Andrade's a horrible fight for Munguia. Andrade is a horrible... Even though if we go off the Liam Williams fight, you'd have to say that Munguia would have a good chance in that fight. But I think Oscar De La Hoya looks at that fight and looks stylistically, if Andrade's at his best, Munguia might get shut out. And stylistically, that's why I think Munguia and Oscar De La Hoya prefer the Charlo fight, because they look at the Charlo fight as probably a more winnable fight and a fight that's more of a war, and a fight that's going to be pretty big numbers-wise, because you can tell stylistically both of those styles mesh well, and it'd be a war. Whereas Andrade could totally outbox Munguia. So I don't think Munguia don't want to go anywhere near Andrade. It's quite clear, man. He was mandatory for his title, and he didn't want to go anywhere near. So he's clearly avoiding and ducking Andrade, and they're on the same platform. You see, I can understand Munguia Charlo not being made, and I don't think it's anyone ducking, because I just think that they're on separate platforms. They're on separate platforms. It's a very difficult fight to make. Politics in boxing, that fight ain't happening. But the fight between Munguia and Andrade was a fight that could have been made so easily. So easy to make fight. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. And the reason why it didn't happen is because of the reason I told you. And Munguia, Oscar De La Hoya does not want to fight or put Munguia in a ring with someone like Demetrius Andrade. You see, why is Oscar De La Hoya mentioning Charlo but not Andrade? Andrade, if I am correct, Andrade is still the middleweight champion. So why not make a fight with Demetrius Andrade? Why look for a Charlo fight when it would have been easier, when you could have made that fight for the last 1 year, 1.5, 2 years with Munguia? But yet you're chasing a Charlo fight when you know that that fight would be a very difficult fight to make, because you've got two different promoters, two different broadcasters, right? And both of you guys, Al Heyman, Oscar De La Hoya, look at the guys that you're representing as future cash cows, and you're not going to allow your fighter to go and fight on different broadcasters or different networks. So wouldn't it have made more sense for Golden Boy and Munguia to fight Andrade, who was on the same platform, right? A guy that was willing to fight you, and he also was like, if Andrade wasn't a world champion, I could understand. But you were literally the mandatory for Andrade, and Andrade was calling you out. Andrade even said, I'm the champion, and I'm calling out the challenger. When do you ever see that? Andrade was the challenger, calling out the champion. Andrade was the champion calling out the challenger. It should be the other way around. Manguia should be calling out Andrade. And this is sometimes the BS that you guys may not talk about. That's nonsense. And I know we like to give Andrade a hard, task sometimes. But at the end of the day, look, what can the guy do? The guy was calling out Munguia, and Munguia is calling out Charlo, and De La Hoya is calling out Charlo, when you know that the Charlo fight is literally impossible to make. Yet there's another champion in your division who you're mandatory to. You have no interest. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm pretty sure Andrade and Munguia would have been a good fight. It would have been a big fight. Financially, it would have been a decent fight. I think it would have done okay numbers. No, I'm not saying it would have been a super fight. It would have done okay numbers. It would have done far better than most of... it would have been the biggest fight for both Munguia and Andrade, financially. And it would have been a fight that we all, for once, with Munguia and Andrade, we would have been anticipating. Neither of them have had any fights in their career that let's be honest, that we think that this is a proper 50-50 fight. Munguia's fought nobody that I would say that he's been in a 50-50 fight. And neither has Andrade. They've all been heavily favoured in their fights. What's the best opponent Munguia's probably favoured? Probably Liam Smith. And he won that fight easily. What's Andrade? Liam Williams? Again, Williams gave him some trouble, but he won that fight easily. What I mean is come on. That was an easy fight to make, and it never got made. And for me, that was De La Hoya and Munguia, because he was mandatory. It wasn't like Andrade could have avoided that fight, and Andrade was calling him out. But I want to address, that's obviously my take on that, but... so Munguia's got himself to blame on that. Munguia could have got a big fight, and he could have got a title shot. I also want to address one of my subs, Oscar Medina, who actually responded to me in a very hostile way on one of the comments. Fair play to him. He's entitled to his opinion. He said, Imran, are you blind? You thought the Rosado and Munguia fight was not. I said it was a pretty close fight. And you responded by saying, look at the state of Rosado's face. Firstly, just to respond to that, you don't judge a fight by somebody's face. Some people mark up much easier than others. The fight was relatively close for a guy that's been knocked out. Rosado's been stopped a few times. Rosado's been outclassed by top-level guys. Lemieux battered, I believe, Rosado. Golovkin, beat up Rosado. And Munguia didn't beat him like some of the guys that have beaten him in the past. And that was a lot much older and much more shot-worn Rosado. Let's be brutally honest. He ain't going to be as fresh as he was back then. For me, the fight was... Yeah, Munguia might have won it. But for me, that Rosado gave him a good fight. Rosado landed a lot of shots on Munguia. There was times in the fight where I thought, whoa, is Munguia, is he okay here? Rosado gave him a very tough fight. I'm not saying the fight was close where Munguia was going to lose. What I'm saying is the fight was a lot harder than what most people expected it to be. Bearing in mind when we look at some of the guys that Rosado's fought in the past and how he's been beaten, right? For me, it was a pretty tough fight for Munguia. it was much tougher than what people expected. Don't get me wrong, Rosado was coming off a very good win of Bekta the Bully. You know, he beat him, which no one expected. But again, even in that fight, go watch that fight. Bekta the Bully, before getting stopped, was battering Rosado. He was getting beat up, and he threw a punch out of nowhere. So what I'm saying is, I still think Rosado gave Munguia a tough fight. A very tough fight. Right? But coming back to Charlo, and you saying Munguia would destroy Charlo, Munguia ain't destroying Charlo. I can guarantee you that. You know, it'd be a good fight. And I think Munguia, if Charlo engages with Munguia throughout the fight and he goes war to war, I think Munguia might win. But if Charlo uses his superior skill set, uses his jab, right, moves around, I believe he's the more athletically gifted out of the two, I believe Charlo will win the fight on points. That's what I believe. So I don't think my observation or my breaking down of the fight is wrong. I believe that would happen. I believe if both of them go toe-to-toe, right, I believe there's a good chance Munguia may win. But Charlo's a lot smarter than that. Charlo's got a very good jab. He's athletically gifted fighter. I believe he'll beat Munguia if he uses his brain. Right? I think Munguia's pretty raw. Yeah, he's getting better. He's young. But right now, I haven't seen enough in Munguia's game to think that he would beat Charlo. That's just my opinion. Now, I might be wrong. I'm not necessarily saying I'm right. That's just my opinion, my friend. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to mine. You know, to say Munguia destroys Charlo is far-fetched. It's far-fetched. He's not going to destroy... He couldn't destroy Rosado. How's he going to destroy Charlo? Charlo's far better than Rosado. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Charlo beat Rosado pretty comfortably? If my memory serves me right, I believe Charlo beat Rosado. I'm not sure, though. I think he did. But yeah, anyway. So the point I'm trying to make is Munguia hasn't shown anything in his game that says that he's going to destroy Jermall Charlo. You know, that's a very, very bold statement from yourself. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. And leave your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.